called around and I found Mark Rideout at the Somersworth Church. I said, I'm looking for a spiritual home and fellowship. And he said, come on in. he was right. It's another congregational church. At the UCC, it was wonderful. I fit right in. The church was a welcoming church. They weren't ONA at the time. They formed a committee to become an open and affirming church, and I found the challenges of being a committee trying to become an open and affirming church. They were open, but they weren't affirming. They weren't public about who they were and how they welcomed people into the church. And that was a big challenge because there were 3 or 4 of us from the LGBT community. And I knew in Somersworth, there were many LGBTQ people that ran their own businesses, that were very open about who they were. And I thought it was great. It was like a mini Provincetown. But those people weren't coming to church. They weren't coming to the UCC church. And some of them didn't go to any church because they didn't feel welcome. And no one was telling them that they were welcome at the UCC church. And that's where the challenge came in, is they didn't have a rainbow flag out front. They didn't promote themselves as being open. They didn't want to be perceived as the gay church. We're just trying to promote that we were a church that was open and accepting of who they were. And I worked with them while I was on the committee locally, but also in the state. You need to tell people that you're open and affirming and you want to welcome the community that's not attending church into the church just to get that fellowship that I felt. And so that was a big challenge. It's a challenge with a lot of churches. I'm open to having people come into my church and sit in the pews with me, but I'm not telling the rest of the community to get those other people that are Christians but don't feel they have a place to go. And that was the missing link. And even I got them to the point where they would put the flag on the church when we were having service. But the rest of the time, that flag didn't exist. It was like almost like a separate group of people joined the church for Sunday morning and then left. And so people didn't think the church was affirming and embracing the LGBT community. It was just another place for some people to be affirming on the Sunday morning, but not affirming the rest of the time. It was like, okay, I turned off the lights. We're not home. When in reality, there were people who loved the LGBT community. They just weren't sharing it outside. And even people marched in parades, and the banner we had didn't have any rainbows on it. We had to reach out and tell them one by one, we're an open and affirming church. I felt a little awkward there because they weren't acknowledging they had to promote that, to tell people, hi, we're here, we're an open church, you've got to come in and be a part of our community. They weren't. I was telling them one-on-one, but they weren't acting like that. It was no different. The church inside didn't have to do anything different during our services. They didn't have to do anything more than welcome people in, but they didn't tell people they were welcome. And I think that's a big challenge for all of our churches, and not just the UCC. Do you have a cross on this church? Yeah, you do. You affirm you're a Christian. And it's a visual thing when people drive by this church. They don't see the Star of David, they see a cross. And that tells people that this is the Christian church. When people see a rainbow flag outside a church, they don't have to make phone calls like I did. They know that they can come to church and be welcomed,